Hello mathematicians, how are you tonight? Today for our lesson, the first thing I need you to do is take out your math journal. Look what I found. I guess I brought my math journal home. I didn't think I did, but I did. What we're going to do is we're going to take our math journals, and what I need you to do is flip to the back, where we have our handbook. And what we're going to do is in our handbook, you're going to turn to the next blank page, and I want you to write down these two terms. If you need to pause the video, you should. Our first word, partitive, is when we're dividing something into portions or pieces. It is where we have a known group or a known number of groups. Quotative is when we divide a number into groups of a measured quantity. So we're going to work on these two things for math today. All right, I'm assuming that you've paused the video so you have all those written down in the back of your math journal. Now, here's something interesting. Today we're supposed to go over the story problems that you did yesterday, but honestly, I can't see how you all did, so I can't even talk about those in class since I don't know what you did. So instead, the big ideas on this are these two words that we just did. We just did partitive and quotative. So those are the two words that are the big idea. Yesterday when we studied, when we were doing our math, the title of it was called Division is Division. And I kept thinking, where does that come from? How does that connect? I don't understand the title. And then what I realized is that it doesn't matter how we're dividing, whether we're dividing into groups where we have a known number of groups or where we're putting into a quantity of groups. Division is division. That's really the bottom line of this. Today, what we're going to do instead, oh, yeah, I know. In my math book, I kept thinking, this sounds so familiar. I swear we did this before. I know it mentioned yesterday that we did do this before. So I went into my math journal. Let's see if I'll get these correct then. And if you look on page, the date was January 27th. This is exactly what we did. This is exactly our math that we're doing today. And remember yesterday I said it's sort of a review of what we did. And when we were doing this and we did our math form then, we saw that Emiliano was talking about a problem that he did, and he did it one way, and it was the grouping interpretation versus the sharing interpretation, which was Tamsin's way. And when we are grouping things, guess what? And when we are sharing things, we're portioning them out. We're putting them into portions. So portions versus grouping. That's the difference, and we've already done all this. So I want you to remember that you have this information on page 1, or I don't know the page number, on whatever the date when we did on January 27th of 2020. So earlier this year. All right. The next thing that I want to show you is, since I'm not going over that math forum, I want to show you that another way that we break down all of these, the difference between grouping or sharing. And again, this is probably very similar to what we already have written in our book, so it should come back pretty easy. And every so often, I'm going to have to move my board down because I don't think I can write on this and like this. My hands are it's not working tonight. All right. So for the grouping interpretation, they have it listed on this side. And I'm sure you can read this to yourself, but I'm still going to read it anyway. In this interpretation of 8 divided by 2, because that's what we're doing, we're going to show two different ways to do that, we can determine how many groups of 2 we can make of 8. So they had 8 items, and they're making them into two different groups of 2. For the sharing interpretation, here we interpret that 8 divided by 2 means that 8 is divided or shared evenly between 2 people. So those are two interpretations that we have here. And what we're going to do is on this bottom part, we're not going to solve these problems. Instead, we're going to label these problems. And again, I'm going to say it is incredibly similar to what we did back in January when we were doing something like this, especially the something right down here. This is exactly what we're going to review today. So sometimes we have a story problem. This story problem says trading cards come in packs of 12 cards. Chris bought 300 cards. How many packs did he buy? So what we're asking there is what information are those numbers telling us? So if we look at the 300 in this particular problem is telling us number of trading cards. And again, I'm going to have to keep pulling this down because I cannot write up like this. All right, number of trading cards. What does the 12 tell us? Trading cards come in packs of 12 cards. So that's going to tell us the number of cards in each pack. Number in each pack. That tells us the number in each pack. So what, in fact, does this equals 25? What does the 25 tell us? Trading cards come in packs of 12 cards. Chris bought 300 cards. How many packs did he buy? So that is telling us the number of packs that were bought. All right. So when we look here at the grouping type, we see that this is actually the size, right? The size of each group. And the answer right here is the number of groups that we need to know. Number of groups. Again, this is called the grouping method. Or, what's that other word for grouping? Quotative. Yep. All right. So for the sharing over here, and I can just write that, sharing. And what was the word I just used for sharing? Partitive. Let's figure out what those numbers mean. It's a different story problem, but look, it has the same exact numbers. Chris dealt out all of the trading cards to himself and 11 friends. How many people are there altogether? Himself and 11 friends. 11 plus 1, 12. So they could play a game. How many cards did each person get? What do each one of these numbers mean? So when we look at this, let me turn that off because I'm sure it's probably going to bop again. Our 300 is actually telling us the number of cards bought, right? So in here, it says Chris dealt out all the trading cards to himself and 11 friends so they could play a game. How many cards did each person get? That tells us how many cards were bought. 12 is going to tell us the number of people, right? That's our group. Or our number of groups. I just went ahead and I wrote that down already. And the 25 is going to tell us how many each one is going to get, right? Number each get. Or the size of each group. And I think if you look back on our page, you're going to see that we did exactly that. We wrote down groups and sizes. And I know we didn't use exactly that word. We put the total, how many in each group, and the group. Those are the words that we used. But it is exactly the same thing that we did here. All right. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you is that I have 2 story problems that we're supposed to try today. And what I'm going to do is I already went ahead and I wrote them down in our journal. and I'm going to give you time to write them. I went and I dated my journal, just like we would normally do. And so now would be a good time for you to, we'll listen to these directions first. Date your page, and then I want you to use 2 pages on this. I want you to write this top one, number 1, on 1 page. And then I want you to write number 2 on the 2nd page. I wrote them all on 1 page because I was trying to save some room. You see, I did not give myself any space to do the work. So, in fact, I'm not going to do the work here in front of you. I'm going to give you a chance to try both of these, but I will read them to you. So, take a moment, pause the video, write down the story problems. I'll put them nice and close. Hold on. So maybe you have a nice clear screen. All right. Now, I'm going to assume that you're back, that you've paused it, and I'm going to try to read backwards what I wrote. The town library has 4,018 books. If there are 82 shelves in the library and the same number of books are on each shelf, how many books are on each shelf? The first thing you need to do right there is write an equation, and then you need to solve the problem. And after you solve the problem, we're always trying to make sure we label what we're doing. And in this particular math program, they like you to write the answer in a complete sentence. That way, it helps your brain to think, oh yeah, what am I solving it for? I'm solving it for, in this particular one, how many books are on each shelf. So I wonder if that's a grouping or a sharing problem. All right, let's do the next one. Number 2. Jared and his dad made 5 cups of chocolate frosting. If it takes 1/4 of a cup frosting for each cupcake, how many cupcakes can they make? Or can they frost? You have to write an equation, and then again you have to answer in a sentence. Jared and his dad can frost 1 cupcake because they gave the rest to Miss Kroll. Oh, no, that's not actually how that is. But I do like frosting. Don't you? I mean, who doesn't? Like frosting, it's sugar. It's kind of good. Well, I don't like it that much, but I do kind of like it sometimes. All right, so there's your problem. That's what you have to figure out. Again, I did not give myself room to actually figure it out. There are a couple ways I could do this. I am going to write an equation, but maybe what I could do is draw a picture, right? I could take 1/4. We did some of these problems yesterday, and I could figure it out. I really do not think that you're going to have problems with that, but I'm going to ask, is it a grouping or is that a sharing problem? And yesterday when you were doing those story problems, did you think about those? What was number 3? Was it a grouping or was it a sharing? How about number 4, 5, and 6? Can you figure out what those were too? Were they grouping or were they sharing? Again, I am not worried about whether or not you're going to do this and show that particular thing to me. The more that you practice it, and if you take it all the way to the end and you figure that out, the better it is going to be for you as a mathematician, because it will be clearer in your brain. So, and just for the record, number 3 was a sharing problem. And then 4 was grouping, and 5 was sharing, and 6 was grouping. So they kind of went back and forth. But if you challenge yourself and see if you can understand how they did that, that is a very good thing. All right, that's all I have for your lesson today. If you have questions, I want you to email me. You know how to get in touch with me through my inbox. And I guess that's all for tonight. Your homework is listed on our assignment page.